before the 140 years, the Episcopalians were around, and I know this for a fact because over on the wall on the far side we have some of the history of the Congregational Church, which met here in this room very shortly after the building was opened, April of 1859. And Will Tenney, not the big picture, one of the smaller ones, he was the founding pastor of the Congregational Church. They held church services here on Sundays. It was the only public hall that could be rented and used for that purpose. So before they ever built the church building, they had their services here. There's plenty of stories that go along with that. One of the stories that Kenny does tell is that on a number of occasions, Bishop Morris, who was an itinerant circuit riding Episcopal bishop, who came around every once in a while, every couple of months I think, and Tenney just thought the world of that man. He thought very highly of him. He was very happy to relinquish the pulpit on those Sundays when the good bishop showed up. And so there was an Episcopal presence very early on, and that eventually resulted in the planting of St. Paul's parish here in the Dalles and the building of the building, which Roger Nichols will now tell us about. Roger.
Thank you. Try those things. Is this going to work? You going to be able to hear that?
What?
Okay. How about that? Is that much better? All right, I'm just going to do this. So, this thing has been sitting here in the battery system. Your battery is running low. Let's plug it in.
Yeah.
Things you never think of, right?
We turned ours off.
Okay, Roger. I'm ready. It's here somewhere. There. Okay. Now we'll dial this in the middle. I don't want to experience of microphones, none of them this tiny. Actually, I think I'm going to use the other one, if you don't mind. Okay, is this going to be okay for everybody?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's easier for me. I want to start out with an apology. First, Julie very much wanted to be here to do this since she did all the work on it. And she is very much involved with St. Paul's, and so much so she's on the vestry, and the vestry is making a retreat in Manuka down in Corbett today, so she couldn't be here. I'll also apologize, I have no answers to any questions. I was not raised here, I was not raised in the church, and I was not raised in that building. So I do want to ask first, how many people have attended services in that church? Raise your hands. How many people baptized in that church? Anybody? All right, I see a few. How many married in that church? Okay. So there's some connection with a lot of you folks. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Well, again, all the research is Julie's. Any mistakes are mine. I was told to say that. All right, the church, let's take a look and see if I punch all the right buttons here. So this is the one we're talking about here on 5th and Union. That was built in 1875 by Reuben Denton Levius, who was originally from New York, Episcopalian clergyman, architect, missionary, and botanist. He came to Oregon in 1872. He was 45 years old. He was assigned to be, I think he was a follow-up circuit rider that rode all over the eastern half of the state of Oregon. And he built 7 new Episcopal congregations during his tenure here, and designed and supervised the building of 6 small churches. These right here. You see the design is fairly similar in many cases. They all had a similar appearance. They had cross-braced timber on the outside. They had external buttresses, some of them, there and there. And notice that this is the one from the Dalles, and it has stepped buttresses. So it has this fancy long timber getting up to it, steps getting up to it there. Also, there's no bell tower. On the other side of the bell tower. The bell came later. I'll tell you the story about that as well. So this is kind of a Carpenter Gothic style, which came out of the Victorian Gothic revival in the mid-1800s. It was a pet plan that used. You can see that the designs are very similar all the way through. It was designed to be serviceable and attractive and cheap. I mean, inexpensive to build. And they would build a heavy timber frame, and then they put vertical planks, and then the joints between the planks were covered with a vertical strip, a batten outside and inside, and then the outside was painted a beige or tan, the inside was lacquered. So one of the churches that he's built over the years was St. John's in Union. That church is no longer there, but you can see how the design is. I want to call attention to, well, I'll get to that on the next slide. And the Ascension Church in Cove, which is still very much there. That's a great shot. Pay attention, this window here, this Trinity window, we'll come back to talk to about later, because it's one of the features that is involved in several of the churches there. And St. Thomas's Church in Canyon City. And they went up very quickly. So he built 2 churches in 1873, this one in the Dalles in 1875, and this one in 1876 here. This is the earliest photo we have of St. Paul's here. This is, we're guessing, all the evidence indicates between 1880 and 1883. This was added, the vestry was added on the, after 1880, so that puts it in that, and before, the bell tower, there's no bell anywhere on there. So that kind of dates it in that 3-year period. It took less than a year to build the building. They started with a Bishop Morris paid $50 in gold coin to the owner. This is gold coin, right? Real money. To Dwight Muzzy, a wood sawyer who was then living on 5th and Union. That's where they decided they wanted to build the church. And then they began their fundraising. The bishop, by the way, donated $500 of his own money. That was matched by the congregation. They reached a total of $655. And they had a strawberry festival, got another $105 for a total of $1,260. Big money back then. And of course, that was when a person may have earned $1 or less a day for a whole day's work too. So you got to put it in perspective. Charles Cron contracted to build the church for $969 unfurnished, and they laid the cornerstone in May. And Dr. Devius planned to hold the first service on Christmas Day of 1875, which was a Sunday. Well, on Friday, 2 days before the first service, the windows arrived. Dr. Devius arrives on Saturday, and the windows on each end, on this side and back, are open, but these are all too big for the spaces. So all night long, members of the congregation shaved it down and cleaned up the shavings just before the service, which was held on time that Sunday. So, you know, everybody pitches in. It's a communal thing. It's an absolutely interesting background for the way it started. And I haven't got enough spin. All right. So in 1885, the rectory was built next to City Park. And this is from 1890, and there's some changes that have been made already. Notice the original, let me go back one. Notice the vertical board batten, and that has been replaced. We're horizontal. They covered it over and did on top of that. They put the horizontal siding there. Also, they've turned the steps 90 degrees. And there we go. Oh, and they put electric lamps in. That's an electric lamp there. Again, this is 1890 here. Then on September 12th or 2nd, 1891, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a fire started on the east end of town in a single-story house spread by a strong northeast wind to the southwest and destroyed most of downtown. How much of downtown? Everything inside that. That, by the way, is a map from the insurance company afterwards, trying to get a good handle on how much was there before and how much was there left afterwards. Interestingly enough, the Los Angeles Herald had this account of the fire. It said, as a result of yesterday's disastrous fire, about 1/3 of the residents and business part of the Dalles is in ashes, for perhaps not less than 1,000 people left homeless. Everything. Yeah, that's an actual photo. Every building between the railroad track on the north and Bluff on the south, Madison on the west, or east, and Laughlin on the west, save the depot buildings and 2 residences were gone. Nothing is left but a dreary waste of ashes and the charred trunks of handsome shade trees. This is perhaps the most dramatic photo you'll see today. That's 1891. And 4 years later, we get, 3 years later, we get the flood of 1894. So that was exciting times. So, and just how close did it come? Well, if we do a close-up, this is this rock. This is the big rock out bluff behind the church. The church is there, and that's how close it came, across the street. Some people say it may have been the rock behind the saved it. It may have been a different kind of rock altogether. Then, several years after, the church began to expand again. The biggest expansion, however, came in 1890, the 25th anniversary, rather 1900, the 25th anniversary of the building of the church, and they made a number of substantial changes. So let's go through some of those. The original front door is gone. It's back over here. They've extended this 16 feet out toward the street, and that's where the front door was originally. They've changed the window. They had that triangular window with the 3 circles in it. We'll talk about that later, and put a different window in. And they've added this masonry. And, oh yeah, this bell tower just came up all of a sudden. It was the biggest change they made in the whole history of it, was that 1900 remodeling. Oh, by the way, notice the street's still unpaved here. It's in 1990. At the end of 1905, we were talking about the organ crawl earlier with Carl and some of the folks here. There's a great story about the organ involved in that church. They bought a Kimball pump organ. It had to be pumped by hand. Somebody had to do the pumping. And Lake Carlisle, whose family had a jeweler shop, and his family lived just a few houses down the corner of 4th and Union, where I think it's Michael Kenny's mortgage company is in that right now. You know, Lake Carlisle remembers as an 8-year-old pumping play. And according to Jean Pryor's history, she wrote a history of the first 50 years of the church. They had then got a crude water pump for the organ. And that gave them endless trouble because they get bubbles of air in the valves. And as soon as the organist would stop playing, the congregation could hear the pump running madly on with the bellows exhaust whistling like a steam engine until somebody would duck down, usually the organist, into a trapdoor and turn the thing off. Fun stuff. The other thing is, it took 75 pounds of pressure, which they normally didn't have there, so every Sunday morning the city would go up the top of Union Street, open the valve now so they'd have more pressure for the reservoir. I'm not sure the city would do that these days. Here's a 1915 photo. Lana Super took this photo, and this is our photo she had. This is the original rectory built over there, and that was later torn down in, I think it was 1928. Oh, forgot to mention about the organ. In 1931, they, hallelujah, put electricity to it, and nobody had to pump or turn the water up for them. And when the St. Paul's moved to the new church building in 1962, the organ went up there, so it's no longer at the old church there. And the street's still not paved in 1915. Okay. And
Are those hitching posts in front of it?
And this one, let's see, where are we here? 1932, they put stucco. Remember we had the horizontal board that? They put stucco over the top, made it kind of look kind of like rock, sort of maybe if you squinted really good. The idea was kind of tie it into the rock foundation that they put in earlier. And this is what it looks like today, the newer rectory here. And yeah, 1928, the old rectory torn down, and this was built in a English cottage style. In 1931, they added a large community room with a kitchen and restroom to the back of the church and vestry named Remington Hall. And the architect for both the rectory and Remington Hall was Ellis Lawrence, the founder of the University of Oregon School of Architecture. So they got somebody decent. I don't know what the timing was, if he did it afterwards or before. When is it? Now, we don't have a picture of the interior, but we do have one of the exterior, which is the rock right here. And as you can see, there's been a lot of stuff come down off the hill over that time. That back door is not usable anymore. In fact, it's not, you can even see it from the inside. They closed it off. But that is the rectory. Okay, here is a one of showing the three buildings, the church and the rectory here on the backside, all put together. I did that poorly, but you understand. Now we get into some people. Reverend Ernest Taylor, came rector in 1934. He was known as Mr. Taylor or Ernie to his friends. He served the parish for more than 30 years, well known and loved the town. Here he's holding a little baby Julie, getting at her baptism in 1949, at 6 months old. If you can't work in a baby picture of the wife, by the way, he was during his tenure there, the church attendance grew to the point where they attracted many more people. They added actually a basement in the rectory and had classes there too. They needed Sheldon Hall at that point, and it was furnished and used as a classroom. In 1959, St. Paul's was designated Oregon Centennial Church of the Dalles. And at this point, let's go inside, take a look. This is on the steps. As you go up the steps, you have the first landing, you turn left and go through the double doors, and you will see the nave, which looks like this. And if you go closer, this is the altar, which was actually, if I get that right, made by Nevius, the guy that did the whole church. This was the circuit writing bishop/architect. The figures on the front were carved by Mary Varney Lang. They're out of walnut. So you've got a fleur-de-lis on each side of the IHS in the center. And I learned some in the research. I said, I've always seen that. I think I know what it means. Well, it has a double meaning. In Greek, the three letters iota, eta, sigma are the first three letters of Jesus' name. In Latin, Jesus hominum salvator, Jesus Savior of mankind. So it's multi-purpose. And how many of you knew that already? All right. Somebody was listening in Sunday school. Okay, that was it. Also, you'll find inside, this is called the credence table. And it has nothing to do with the band from the south. It has where things are stored, and the most important item right there being the collection plate. Also, there is a wonderful brass lectern here in the shape of a needle. And I'm not sure where that came from, but I hear there's stories about that, and we didn't have time to go into all of that. That is there. And this is, they added a transept or a cross piece where the choir sits on each side. And here was, Julie said this is where the organ used to be. And the trap door is somewhere right in there. The guy had to scramble down and turn the water picture on. Let's look at some windows. This is always the pretty stuff here. Remember, there were three windows in three roundels in that triangular shape between the Trinity and other aspects of religion. At least one book mistakenly describes this one as an eagle. It's obviously a phoenix rising from the ashes. You can see the flames there. Well, and that double holding wings like this is a sign of the phoenix as well. It's obviously a symbol of resurrection. And then we have the sacrificial lamb, Agnus Dei, the Lamb of God. And one of the strangest things, I always found this to be really bizarre. This is the pelican. And the old theory is the pelicans, at times when they're food, she tears open her breast and feeds her young on her blood. She sacrifices herself for her young ones, an obvious parallel to the sacrifice on the cross. And sometimes it's also used as a symbol for the Eucharist. You can see how that would fall from there. But we don't have a photo of one of the biggest windows, which was, and I'm sorry about that, but since they constructed the kitchen, you can't see from the outside, there's no light that comes through it. So it's been behind a curtain for years and years and years. In fact, Julie said, I always wondered what was behind the curtain. He used to tell stories about that in Sunday school to each other. Might be there. But the window actually shows, it was a memorial to, by General Joseph Eaton, who, his son died at age 16 just after entering the Naval Academy. And so it has a number of symbols on it, including an anchor, the symbol of the U.S. Navy. But we do have some other ones. Now remember when they had that rondel and they changed it, and this is what they replaced it with, the lily window. That's the one on the front, the one you see from Union Street. And it was made by Povey Brothers Studios in Portland, a very famous glassmakers. And it's this was again done in 1900, and they obviously quoting the consider the lease of the field, how they grow, they toil not, neither do they spin, that I say unto you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. It's a verse from Matthew. It's a cool verse. There's also one other memorial window, the St. Cecilia window. In 1914, it was given, here's an interesting tidbit that I really found intriguing. Naomi Pike Schenck gave this in memory of her niece, Naomi Kubalong Fairfowl, which is not easy to say. And Naomi Park Schenck was a survivor of the Donner Pass winter as a 3-year-old and ended up living in the Dalles. Little connection to history there. Well, in 1962, the congregation just outgrew the St. Paul's downtown and moved to the new one up at 18th and Minnesota. The number of congregants had just outgrown the old church. Remington Hall was rented by the Red Cross and the offices by the Boy Scouts. And then along comes this guy. No relative of mine, I'm sorry to say. I wish I could thank him. Colonel Lewis E. Nichols with his museum in there. He had wonderful collections of local fossils, rocks all over. And he had a section, if you remember, that the fluorescent ones, he had the black light on. You can see below. It was kind of a cool thing. And he had that for many years. This Museum of Natural History started in 1966, and I believe it was until 1980 that he was there. And then we come to this guy here. One of my favorites. Good to see all the Kimseys here today. Rusty, as we call him, his grace became the 5th bishop of the Diocese of Eastern Oregon in 1980. He decided to use Remington Hall as his office. And the Nichols Museum moved out in August, and the diocesan staff moved in. At this time, they refinished, and the floors were restored. 4 large offices were created at the rear of Remington Hall. And Gretchen, I understand, was given some shutters from the house that 4th and Union from the Carlisle. Oh, you refinished them and put them in there to keep it in the right timing of it. I really appreciate it. Then, in 1990, Rusty and Gretchen initiated a historic renovation of the exterior in consultation with David Powers of the Oregon State Historical Preservation Office. They formed a restoration committee, and Paul Shannon was the head of that, and raised a lot of money, and did it to returning the church to its appearance of around 1900. Remember, the horizontal siding is back now, instead of stucco over the top. So currently, the Remington Hall in the basement house the diocesan archives. The chapel, which remains a consecrated church, is used by the Quakers for their Sunday meetings twice a month. Cascade Singers gave a concert last year and enjoyed the acoustics. Taizé services are being held on Wednesday evenings during Lent. Everyone is welcome to attend. Tuesday. She wrote Wednesday here. She's in trouble. All right. All the fault is mine. I apologize. And everyone's welcome to come to these short, quiet services, which feature readings, chants, and meditation. The chapel is owned by the Diocese of Eastern Oregon, which would love to see it used more regularly. One proposal is to have it open for walking tours of the Dalles. And Julie, by the way, has made special arrangements with Pat Fowler to be open today. That will be up there at the church if you want to see it. up close and personal inside, take the tour, walk around. As soon as we have a chance to grab some coffee and cookies downstairs, you'll be all invited for the real thing. Thank you so much for listening and your attention. I appreciate it. I hope you have a good time.
So we have time for some questions, answers, discussion. We have a good pool of knowledge out here. Roger doesn't have answers to questions. Somebody will. Comments, stories, something to share.
Can you still have weddings there if it's a consecrated, you have to get this certificate and stuff, or?
Can you still have weddings
They're
there?
asking about weddings, Mom, whether they're still.
Since it's still really a real church, you have to have a real.
I think at this point, it would be difficult because there isn't, it isn't,
Right.
I mean, it could happen, but it's not likely. There have been weddings there and funerals during the time Rusty was bishop, those 20 years. But even those were few and far between because the big church up on the hill is our parish church. And so it would be used on those occasions more times.
Yes.
I want to know when they finally paved the street. I don't know. It's after 1915, we know that. Yes?
Me?
Yeah.
Or somebody?
You.
I would like to just say that because this is the 140th anniversary of the chapel, we're hoping, we meaning St. Paul's Parish, we're hoping to have a number of different venues during the year, concerts, maybe a book reading, maybe a historical, like maybe Sam Woolsey would do something about, I think Sam is here somewhere. His wonderful family that was just written up in the Chronicle. Or Keith Mobley's family. Is Keith here also? Yes. Things like that. We really want to have the building be used, especially this year, to commemorate 140 years. So offerings and ideas from the public would be most welcome. Make sure that your ideas get to Paul Shano is, or Jerry Frazier would be another good person to speak to about this. It's a wonderful place and it deserves to be used like old beautiful things deserve. And so don't be shy about offering your suggestions.
I just want to add this to the historical record, and if anybody wants to challenge it, they're welcome to do that. But I believe that the last time the church bells were rung at Old St. Paul's was on July 4th of 1976, the 200th anniversary. And I know that for a fact because I was the guy that was ringing the bell.
You were the bell ringer.
I was the bell ringer that day. So if anybody knows differently, let me know. I'd also just like to say a little bit about Nevius, because I'm a botanist, a serious amateur botanist, and you need to know that he was a very serious botanist himself. And to the point that he has a plant named after him, Chenactus nevii, which is a little, it's a sunflower that grows over in the John Day Valley country. I have a collection in my herbarium at home. It doesn't look like a typical sunflower, but it's a member of the composite family. So those early missionary and ministers were a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. And I think about Thomas Condon and his contributions to paleontology and things like that. So Nevius is right there along with him.
I think it's great.
It's good. Anybody else? Well, if there's no further discussion, Pat, raise your hand. Pat's going to be opening the building over there. We will have coffee and cookies downstairs as usual, but if you'd like to take a walk, it's a beautiful day, or drive your car up. The church is over at the 5th and Union. And now the drawing.
Well, why don't we let our speaker do the honors?
And we have Linda Turner.
Oh, you're kidding.
Well, I think Linda had perfect attendance, so I think she had quite a few.
So we can get you in the picture.
All right.
So congratulations.
That's perfect, because I was thinking I needed those old topics to learn about more history of the
They are
Dalles.
now yours.
Cool.
And I believe you are still one of the,
Doing the hop on,
Guides
hop off
for the
tour
hop
for
on.
the Empress, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so,
this is perfect.
very good.
All right,
Okay.
cool, thank you.
Congratulations. As mentioned before, the mugs and the coins and the DVDs are all for sale too, if you'd like to check them out, they're downstairs. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you all for being here. We'll have another special program along about the first week of June when we open up for our summer season. Actually, we're going to be open for those boats, April, when they start coming. And
7th of April is the first vote.
we've had very large attendance these last years, or many people coming through the courthouse since the boats have come, and the hop-on, hop-off buses stop. We get maybe 20 people in here at a time. So it's wonderful. Take your time. If you haven't been in the courthouse, some of us can tell you the upstairs here, where you go listen to the downstairs, some of the other displays. Thank you for coming.
Just, she'll do something wrong. Welcome to the original Wasco County Courthouse. This is our annual meeting. Once a year, we have a meeting of members and guests. We tell a little about what has happened the last year, and we have a program. And this year, our program is just going to be great. Marge Harding and her husband Rolla have a grand show of vintage garments, and so that we know when people came to our courthouse, when it was a courthouse, that what they wore, and you will be greatly surprised. Anyway, I would like to introduce my board members, some of whom are here and some of whom aren't. I'm Sandy Bissett, I'm president of the board, and Carl Verkuterin is our vice president. Juanita Neatling is our secretary, and Judy Moore is our treasurer. Judy was unable to be here today. Trish Neal is a board member. She also had a medical emergency. Dwayne Powell, who is in the back, is on our board and does all of our electronics work. Roger Nichols, who is in the back corner, is a very special board member because he is the one who is instrumental in transferring all of our old program tapes to CD, and eventually you will be able to come in and listen to those old tapes, whether they be from an interest area or from a relative of yours or something that you did 20 years ago. So anyway, and the gentleman who accosted you at the front door and made you have a ticket before you came upstairs is Jerry Davis, and he is also a very valuable member of our board. We have 2 board openings, and when we get down to the election part of the program, any of you who are here who would be interested in being on our board, we have 2 openings. So, anyway, a couple of things that I would like to mention. Speaking of board members, some of you know that Kevin Hashizumi has been on our board, and he has opted to step down. And our shortest tenured board member ever is Lynn Cotter, who is sitting in the front row, and she has opted to be a volunteer rather than a board member. And I'll tell you what, we're going to keep her busy. And she has been great help all summer and through our restoration work. Patrick Ellis, who is downstairs, is our docent has been for several years, and so we have a very great appreciation for him. The person that I left to last is a gentleman named Paul Tews, who is not here today, but he has just stepped down from our board, and he has been on our board for a number of years. He has been president in the past. He filled in for treasurer when a previous treasurer passed away. He's the one that, along with Carl, you would find crawling under the house, hooking up the heat tape in the winter. I have memories of Paul and Carl taking down the flagpole and painting it, and he was just one of those guys that was always there when